hands are gonna freeze off.
What?
I'm dying.
Wow.
I'm dead.
That was quite the scene. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This week's video is going to go over the follow-up 4 months later after installing our Happybuy 5 kilowatt Chinese diesel heater, how it actually performs, install mistakes to avoid, the controls that we like to use, does it actually keep us warm, and just our general overall thoughts on the diesel heater as a whole. But before we get into the video, I want to take a second just to thank you guys so much for helping us to reach 500 subscribers. Each and every one of you guys helps us to continue to make videos that we love to do and to give you guys valuable information about how to live van life. So if you don't mind taking a second, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and like our video. It helps us with the YouTube algorithm. So without further ado, here we go. First up is, why did we buy this exact kit? So the other big competitors are the Webasto, the S-Bar heater. The primary reason we didn't go with those was just how expensive they are. They're both $1,500, $2,000 just to buy in the first place, and they are tapped into your actual fuel tank for your van, which is actually really nice. So when you fill up your van, you don't have an external tank that you have to worry about keeping full all the time. So you got a way bigger tank, but it's a really hard installation to do. So on top of all that money that you're gonna pay in the beginning, you're also gonna have to pay to get it professionally installed. So that's gonna be like another $1,000. The Webasto and S-Bar are also catered to diesel tanks. So our van runs on petrol or regular gasoline, so we would need a special kit just for that, which makes it even more expensive, and they're rare and hard to find. So one of the most easily accessible diesel heaters when you're in a time crunch is on Amazon. It's Happybuy is the brand. They're all over. There's a billion different kits. So why did we choose this specific one? I put the link right down below so you can kind of see all the different attachments that it has involved with the kit. But this one specifically, number one, it's like gray. You see a lot of the red and black ones, and those just look obnoxious. I wasn't trying to have one of those. And this kit came with a T kind of divider so that I could split my vents to have one run into the main cab to keep all of this area warm, as well as one to run back and underneath the bed into the garage to help keep all of our electrical components warm. Because you all know with our smartphones, whenever they get too hot or too cold, they don't function, and it definitely shortens their total lifespan. So we also got the 5 kilowatt version simply because some of our friends that we met out here in the summer also run the same diesel heater, and they told us that the 5 kilowatt was exactly what they needed. They said that a 3 kilowatt probably wouldn't be enough to keep you warm in negative 15 degree weather out here. You'll notice that there's a billion different Happybuy Chinese diesel heaters on Amazon, eBay. A lot of them are generally around the same price, so you really can't go wrong whichever way you go. Another one of the reasons why we got this specific diesel heater is because it has a high altitude setting. Anytime you're above 6,000 feet of elevation, you need to adjust your fuel to air level to account for having more or less oxygen in the atmosphere. If the setting isn't quite right, it will run rich, is what a lot of people will say, and a lot of the extra fuel that's being pumped into the system will not burn up, and it can actually clog up your system. That's going to shorten the life of it. So you need to be able to toggle that on and off in order for the heater to run most efficiently. So you guys have already seen the videos of me installing the heater. There's a few, I don't know if I'd call them mistakes, but there's a few things that I would have changed about our install that go a long way. From all the other videos that I watched of people installing their diesel heaters, they always direct mounted it to the bare metal of their van, needing to disperse the heat well and not wanting to burn anything, their wood or whatever that the heater's on, because it gets so hot. And a lot of these people were installing it at the beginning of their van build, so before they put their floors in. I had to cut out all of this stuff to be able to get down to the bare metal of the van. What I would recommend is actually just elevating it on 2 little wooden blocks. That's going to save you a ton of time, and it'll actually probably look better as well. The absolute smartest thing that I did with our install was mounting the pump on the outside. So the pump is very loud and obnoxious. It makes this constant clicking noise. Get a load of this. You want to be listening to that every night, all night? No, sir. So mounting it on the outside helps suppress and minimize the amount of noise that it makes. One of the things that I might change about our install is mounting our diesel tank in a more visible spot. Nina and I put our diesel tank back there behind our fridge. It's nice because it's space efficient and you don't even see the diesel tank. It's not ugly, it's not in the way. But because it's all the way back there, it's really hard to see how much diesel we still have. While it's really nice that I can just fill up at a gas station just like this with a gun, I have to peek behind the driver's seat to see what level we're at. So there's been plenty of nights where Nina and I have forgotten to check the amount of diesel that we have left in our tanks simply because we're driving. We don't think to look behind the fridge. We don't just see it naturally, and we've run out of diesel in the middle of the night, which makes for a very sleepless night or a very cold run to the gas station to get more diesel. The big question that you guys are probably asking is, will this heater keep me warm? And the answer is absolutely yes. My wife and I were ski instructors in Jackson Hole, Wyoming for an entire winter season, and it will get to -15, -20 degrees out here, and we had zero problems. So we typically only ran the heater at night, simply because we were always out during the day. We weren't really in the van. There was no need to keep it warm all day and just be running through fuel, especially with how expensive gas and diesel is right now. We were trying to save on money, so only running at night was nice because we didn't have to fill up as often, only having a 2.5 gallon tank, and saved us a ton of money only running it 8 to 10 hours a day versus 24 hours. Unless you're going somewhere where temperatures are below 30 degrees Fahrenheit, you probably won't need this heater. So even when it's in the 20s out here, my wife and I only really run our heater on the lowest setting overnight, and that is plenty to keep us warm. If you're somewhere that's above freezing, you honestly probably don't need the heater. Before buying this thing, I was prepared that the directions they give you kind of are in gibberish. They don't really make sense. They're not very clear. So I was prepared for that going in, and so I had done a bunch of research and figured out how to control this thing before I got it. But when I actually installed it, my control panel was entirely different than anything I'd seen online. So I'm gonna give you guys a little rundown of what our control system does. So hopefully, if you are in the same boat as us and nothing online is matching up, hopefully our systems work the same. If you're playing with your system and your controls are different than mine, skip this section, get out of here. Don't listen to anything I'm about to say. I'm just trying to help you guys skip some of the trial and error that Nina and I had to go through in order to figure out how this thing worked. Here is our heater. It's currently off. We have the high altitude setting on right there. This is the temperature that it says we are at currently. Whether or not that's actually accurate, I don't really know. Obviously, to turn on the heater, there is a power button, and that is how you turn it on. But before you do this, you need to prime the pump. So we need to suck the diesel out of the tank through the fuel line all the way into the heater so that it's not just pushing out wind, that it's actually pumping out heat. So for my system, the way to prime it was not the OK and down that most of the systems had. I had to manually hold the up and down arrows until it primed all the way. If you let go of the up and down arrows for any amount of time, it will stop priming immediately. So you do have to sit there for a minute or two and hold it until the entire system's primed. And you kind of just guess when it's up. You don't really know for sure. Something that I came across with my controller is it'll pop error code. So it'll say E-08. Do not freak out. That error code is just saying that you don't have enough diesel. So either you ran out or you didn't prime the pump enough to make sure that the diesel was actually in the heater. Prime it for a little bit longer, check your diesel tank. Oh, I'm out of diesel, go fill up, prime it again, make sure it's got diesel. Should be an easy fix. Don't panic if it says error code 8. Go ahead and hold that guy down. So it immediately gives us to this H setting right here. So you can kind of toggle it around. So every time you press OK, I have no idea what this thing says, or it's always just fluctuating. Press OK again. Voltage, not super important. We'll generally leave it on this setting. This H setting is the amount of heat output that there is. So I can go down, it shows the amount of bars there too. I can go all the way down to 1, that's our lowest setting, or I could go all the way up to 6, which I wouldn't recommend because it's not as fuel efficient. The other primary setting is holding down the settings button. That's gonna switch us to the thermostat. Here, we can set our desired temperature that we wanna sit at. So I'll say 15 degrees Celsius, and it will change the amount of heat put in order to get it to here. It'll probably run on 6 in order to get it up to the temperature. But then once it's there, it'll slow down to the first setting, and then depending on how hot it is outside, it'll probably just keep climbing in temperature, which is why Nina and I like to leave it on heat output setting, this, because we know how much heat we're gonna bleed, and we know about what temperature this is gonna have us sit at. And then if you hold down this power button, it's gonna switch the heater to off. It'll tell you off, and then it's gonna go down through a cool down cycle. There's definitely more controls and more settings built into this controller, but unfortunately, they're so unreliable and the controller is so finicky that you can't really rely on them, and you can't really predict if they're gonna work, when they're gonna work. After living in it for 4 months, I still haven't used any of the timer controls or even the thermostat. We just stick to the heat output setting. Something else just to keep in mind is when you run it for the first time, it's not gonna smell the best. It's gonna smell really plasticky. It's gonna smell like it's burning something, but don't freak out. Like, do not freak out. It's completely normal. It's okay. Maybe just air out the van, open all the doors, let it run for a little bit. So I would recommend, before you actually need the heater, install it well before with plenty of time to allow it to actually run its cycle and go all the way through. That way, when you actually need it, you're not gonna take in all the different toxins that it's putting out. Then once your heater's on, there's 2 primary settings for how you want it to work. The first one is adjusting the amount of heat output. Our system went from H1 to 6, and you can just press the up and down arrows. The 1 setting is the slowest amount of heat output. We found this was nice for any temperatures between the 20s and 30s. That'd keep our van at a nice good temperature. The 6 setting pumps out a lot of heat really fast, so you're gonna run through your diesel really quick. So if you're just wanting to get the van warm because you're freezing, sure, run at this setting. Otherwise, keep it lower. You'll probably be a little bit more fuel efficient. The control to toggle on the high altitude setting, which I talked about earlier in the video, for me was pressing the OK and up arrow and holding it down until you got a little mountain icon on it to show up. However, sometimes when I do this, it doesn't work. Luckily, we live up here, and once I toggled it on, I don't really need to take it on and off all the time. If you guys are traveling a lot and are going up and down and using your heater, good luck. I hope that it works for you guys perfect every single time, but what I found when using this heater is sometimes the controls that work one time won't work the next time. Some final overall thoughts on the Happybuy 5 kilowatt heater. Don't sleep on this little Bluetooth clicker guy. You see this thing? This thing came in clutch so many different times, especially because Nina and I were often at friends' houses or we were out for the night. If we were parked anywhere close to where we were at, all we had to do was click on and it would turn our heater on. We could even adjust the amount of heat output that it had. And by the time that we were done hanging out or whatever, an hour before we were ready to hop in the van, we'd come into a nice warm van and not have to wait and shiver in here until the van warmed up. So the Bluetooth clicker is an absolute must. The biggest negative I would probably say about this heater is because the control panel is so difficult to understand, me and I really only found consistency and predictability from changing the H value or the amount of heat output. And it'd be really nice if the thermostat setting was really accurate and worked at maintaining that temperature. We had to find the perfect balance of heat that the van is bleeding with the heat settings 1 through 6 on the van. So it took a lot of trial and error to figure out which heat setting was needed depending on what the temperatures were overnight. If we ever didn't check and set it to a certain heat setting, not thinking about it when we went to sleep, we would often wake up way too hot or we would wake up way too cold. So I wish that thermostat setting was a little bit more accurate. It's snowing. Woo! Winter van life, baby.